I was only 18, I thought for certain that I wouldn't be able to live to see morning. My name is Seymour Lipper. Everyone calls me Cy. For this, I'm a World War II veteran. I was a kid at the time. In fact, I was so young that I was just 18 when I was overseas already. Went through some experiences. I was born, first of all, in Newark, New Jersey. When I was about 1 or 2, my folks moved to Queens in Astoria. My dad was a baker. He had a bakery shop that he bought there. Well, I grew up during the Depression because I was born in 1926. The Depression started in the 30s. From there, we moved into the Bronx till I was 17. I had gone from PS 52 to the Bronx High School of Science. I was in high school at the time of Pearl Harbor. When I was in my senior class, the military sent some recruiters over to the school to see who they could get signed up for the military. So I took the tests, passed it as I said, but I wanted to go into the Air Corps. They wouldn't take me because at the time I wore glasses. I said, okay, let me try the Navy. The same thing occurred. They wouldn't accept me. I wasn't 20/20 vision. But the Army said, we'll be happy to have you. So I joined the Army at the time. It was a peculiar type of joining because I wasn't 18, and you had to be officially 18 years of age to be part of the Army. When I turned 18, literally the day I turned 18, they had me go into the Army officially. Then I was sent down to Fort Bragg. My basic training was in the artillery on a 155 millimeter cannon. It was quite an experience because given orders to go to the Queen Mary, which was on the Hudson River somewhere, I went on the Queen Mary with 14,000 other soldiers, and we were shipping over to Scotland. The Queen Mary was much faster than any other ships available. As a result, we did not go in a convoy because we couldn't go that slow. So we went by ourselves. We zigzagged all the way through to the northern tip of Scotland. Well, we went through the North Atlantic, which was a very big storm, etc. I was in my bunk, which was in the hold, very crowded. You can picture 14,000 on the ship. It was loaded. Anyway, lying on the bunk, an announcement came over the loudspeaker. We've just heard that the German High Command announced the sinking of the Queen Mary. The sinking of the Queen Mary in the North Atlantic. We were looking at each other thinking what the devil happened, because were we torpedoed or were we not? But nothing happened. We finally landed in Scotland, got onto a troop train, heading down to Southampton in England. Went over to France, I believe it was Marseille that we landed in, got into 40 and 8s. 40 and 8s were the freight cars used in Europe. On the way to the front, I had my first experience in shelling. We were shelled. I assumed at the time it was artillery. I was only 18, I thought for certain that I wouldn't be able to live to see morning. Finally, it was over with. We kept going on to Givet, France, where I joined the 349th Replacement Depot. And from there, we were supposed to be sent individually to different armies, divisions, up at the front lines, because we were about a mile or two back of the front line. And then as we were heading toward the front, as the front moved up, we're told we didn't realize that we were already in the Battle of the Bulge, because we found ourselves surrounded. During the Battle of the Bulge, the temperature was down below zero. Some days down as much as 30 below. Couldn't even dig a foxhole because the ground was so frozen. So what we did was sleep between the trees that were shot down and next to each other just to keep warm. I wound up with frozen feet, frozen hands. You couldn't even pull a trigger. It was so cold that your hands were so stiff. And orders that came through from headquarters was to stay with your outfit, stay with your squad, your platoon, only with those members that you are familiar with, that you know. Why did they do that? Because the Germans that came through were not only in German uniform, but there were a number of them in American uniforms, spoke like Americans. So we were told, if you see anybody that you're not familiar with, you shoot first, question later. And that's exactly what we did. We shot at anybody we didn't know, including Germans, including American uniforms, including civilians. Of course, we didn't know whether they were going to be shooting at us or not. Frankly, I didn't care. They were Germans, and I wanted to do what damage I could do. The Battle of the Bulge started about the middle of December, and it lasted till the middle of January. Because we were on our own, all we had was the sea rations that we ate, and Christmas was coming up. We didn't have any way of being able to celebrate Christmas. They had a number of soldiers go out looking for deer. I happened to be one of them. Bring deer back for Christmas dinner. After the Battle of the Bulge, we kept moving up to the front and then over the Remagen Bridge to Germany. It was quite an experience. I remember that we were in a group of homes just off the river. They looked like well-to-do homes to me. When we got into the houses, the food was still on the tables where the Germans just left and we just moved in. The way I felt about Germans, and I frankly took everything out from the house, put it out on the front lawn, and set fire to it. It was quite an experience, and I certainly didn't regret it. Because when I learned about the concentration camps and what they were doing and killing and everybody, I didn't have any concern about what damage I did, who I hurt, who I may have killed. One of the concentration camp, which was Buchenwald, that was quite an experience, and I can never regret seeing it. And yet, it's a terrible thing. I saw bodies, nude bodies, laying one on top of the other. Oh God, there had to be several hundred, maybe a few thousand, just laying there. A number of them came out of the ovens, etc. It was a hell of a thing to see. And how people can say at this stage of the game that Holocaust never occurred. If you've ever been there, seen any part of it, you can never forget. The jeeps at the beginning of the war took you wherever you were going, or the people, the officers, etc. And many of them were being killed by the Germans putting steel ropes across the road. The war ended. President Roosevelt died. Bear in mind, I was only 18. I had literally a nervous breakdown. It took me all day to talk myself out of it, because at that time, Franklin Roosevelt was like a god to all of us. Went back on a small boat, took us 2 weeks, and I'll never forget what happened as we entered or saw the United States from a distance. As we came into New York Harbor, the soldiers were up on deck, and you couldn't hear a pin drop. They were looking at the Statue of Liberty. Everybody was very happy that they were back in the United States. Got off the ship. All of us were sent over to Fort Dix. Fort Dix was in a chaotic stage because all the troops that had been in since the beginning were being there to be discharged. They told me to get onto a line. I got onto a line, and at the end, they asked a lot of questions, what I did, where I was, etc. If you had 125 points, you were eligible for discharge. The outfit I was with started off in Africa, so these were boys that were in the service from the very beginning, and as a result, all of them had a minimum of 125 points. I only had about 39, because as I told you, I was a replacement. Came back, and there were orders sitting there for me that I was to return to the United States immediately. 45 days R&R, which is rest rehabilitation, to be ready for the invasion of Japan. At the end of the line, they stamped me discharged. I was shocked. I didn't say a word. Again, following orders, I got out of it, and we thought for sure that a few days after we were discharged, they would send military MPs after us to tell us a mistake had been made, and we were to come back in for service to finish up and go to the invasion of Japan. Anyway, nothing happened at all. We were discharged, and that was it. We went home, and that was the end of it. When I came back, the first one I saw was my kid brother. He's 8 years younger than I. I was in tears all the way through. And I can't forget it. I deliberately wanted to speak to the students in the classes that I was in because I felt that they should know what occurred. And if you don't, too much history is lost. So I've always felt it was very important to pass on as much as you could about what went on. I was in for 2 years, and that was my experiences.